My name is Marina Psaros. I'm Unity Sustainability Lead, and I am so excited to be with you today with this panel, Envisioning Earth's Futures. We have a couple of folks who are working on really exciting projects looking at how we can incorporate complex data and science in ways that are engaging and interesting for everyday people through games, through visualizations, through experiences. I want to get everyone in here and say hi. So Stephanie, let's start with you. Do you want to give an introduction?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Haysmith. I work for the United Nations Environment Programme Ozone Secretariat, and we're behind the Reset Earth campaign creations of the game app and animation.
Juliano.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Marina. My name is Juliano Calil. I'm a senior fellow at the Center for the Blue Economy at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, and also the co-founder at Virtual Planet Technologies.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, I'm Alan Gershenfeld. I'm the president and co-founder of Eline Media, and we're a developer and publisher of commercial social impact video games.
I wanted to start off by setting a little bit of context for everyone here today by talking through each of your overall goals with these projects and showing a little bit of what they look like. So Juliano, I'd love to start with you.
Great, thank you. So we're going to show you a little clip of some of our experiences. We started our work with the sea level rise and coastal hazards, and really developing these experiences as a way to bring some of this complicated concepts and into a more realistic and simpler way of showing, how our coastlines are changing and some of the adaptation options that we can see in the future. And we've been using them in community outreach, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we've been using them a little later. But I'm also very excited to show you 3 other experiences that we're launching. One is around wildfires. Another one looking at urban heat in cities and large cities. And the final one is a little class that we're developing for marine protected areas here in California for high schoolers and mid schoolers. So.
The burning of coal, oil, and natural gas all produce greenhouse gas that forms a blanket around the Earth.
This blanket traps heat, causing global temperatures to rise, but also cause glaciers and ice sheets to melt, seawater to expand, which both raise sea levels.
Sea level rise could change coastal cities permanently. We must make tough decisions now.
Out there through the trees, something has sparked a flame, and it's starting to spread fast. Wildfires represent an increasing danger due to our planet's warming climate and changing rainfall patterns.
Hi friends! I'm so happy you're here. My name is Marina, and I will be taking you on an adventure today. Let's say hello to my good friendly elephant seal. Hi, Angus! It feels great to be underwater.
Hi, I'm Derek. I was born here and have lived my whole life in the city everyone calls Cleveland. I would love to ride my bike more, especially during the good weather, but I'm not so sure it is the best idea because it's so hot. I wish we had more bike lanes and shade, but we don't. Man, it is so hot today.
Wow, Juliano, I did not realize that you were producing all of those different experiences. I know the sea level rise, or I know the work that you've done there, but that was really cool to see all of those different ways that you're using visualization. Stephanie, let's go to you.
Yeah, so at the Ozone Secretariat, we wanted to convey quite complex science and policy behind ozone layer protection and the work of the Montreal Protocol to a target audience that we realized was very unaware of what the ozone is and the importance of protecting it. So we wanted to find a medium that would talk to this target audience, which was sort of the 10 to 13-year-old age range, that would be both interesting, visually stimulating, and be able to inform and tell this scientific and quite complex theory in a way that was easily understood and was also interesting to learn about. So we created an animation storyline around 3 characters who go and basically travel back in time to put the Montreal protocols in place. And this then also informed a game app, which is a parallel storyline where the same characters work collectively and together to reverse the destruction of the ozone layer.
What I love about this one the most, the first time I saw it, I was so surprised because I've seen a lot of educational games that are for that age range, and they often look really cartoonish and really young, and therefore kids that age don't want to play them. And this one, it really strikes me how sophisticated the art and the gameplay is, and I think it is done just a wonderful job appealing to a broader audience. And I think that's actually a great segue to Alan. You're also working in this space.
That's right. So we'll take a quick look at Beyond Blue. It's a science-grounded video game that we developed, inspired by and partnered with BBC Blue Planet 2. We wanted to reach a broad gaming demographic across Xbox, PlayStation, mobile through Apple Arcade, soon Nintendo Switch, and VR, to really inspire players to engage with the ocean, to capture the awe and wonder. And if they care about the future of the ocean, if they get immersed in the future of the ocean, they'll help becoming better stewards of the ocean. So we'll take a quick look.
Welcome to the Western Pacific. I'm Dr. Mirai Soto, and I'll be your eyes and ears on this expedition. I'm joined today by 2 colleagues.
Hello, I'm Andre.
And I'm Irina.
First time on a live stream. Be gentle with her. Oh, wow. Glad we didn't miss this.
Beautiful. Why are you so focused on this pod and the baby?
I'm hoping to follow the baby for years, to learn from her as she learns from her family.
Hello, Mariah. Thanks for checking in. Feeling settled in the sun? Is everything tested out?
Fabulous. The overhead speakers sound great. Glad I brought my tunes.
Science is not magic, it takes patience.
I'd like to believe in a little magic. Marina, did you expect volcanic activity here? Andre, who is messing with my whales?
That's beautiful. I've actually played Beyond Blue a number of times with my kids, and it's gotten them so engaged in ocean science, which is so gratifying for me coming from that world. And it also makes me reflect on the fact that there's a lot of urgency now around getting people who haven't been engaged on environmental issues more aware and more engaged. And I wanted to hear from you all, and maybe we'll start with Alan, just about how you're looking to increase overall engagement and awareness around these issues through your experiences.
You know, for us, the nature of the type of games we do, we work with a lot of domain experts. So in the case of this game, we worked with these amazing they're really aquanauts. I mean, they're explorers, they're scientists. They are going into uncharted spaces in the ocean. And, you know, entering the game, we as game makers didn't necessarily know a lot about the ocean. But the more we discovered how much of the ocean is undiscovered, the fact that they're often discovering brand new species, the fact that we know so little about these areas, the amazing cool technologies that they're doing to hear and feel and see the ocean in entirely new ways. The idea that we're learning that these sperm whales are communicating in these amazing languages, that's one of the subplots in the game. If we can give the players the experience that we had getting to know the ocean and the ocean scientists, then we've been successful.
Yeah, that was great. You mentioned something, experiencing in new ways, right? And that was kind of part of what inspired us to start with our sea level rise experiences, because I live here in Santa Cruz in California, and the city was going through these plans to adapt our coastlines to a changing climate. And then they were looking for a new way to engage with the local residents and show them, hey, what could happen here and what are some of the potential futures that we could experience here for the city. And from there, during the pandemic, we end up doing, you know, it started with the virtual reality, but then we ported over to 360 films, also phone apps, and we're working on augmented reality now, so you can see some of the 3D models of our coastline, and it's been kind of an interesting way. We had our experience on the local public library for about 10 weeks, and over 400 people showed up and they got the headsets and they checked them out and they go through the experience. We're working on the dive experience with a local nonprofit that they just acquired 30 headsets that are going to be using in different classrooms through the region. So it's been kind of an interesting way of showing this new way of experiencing things, right?
I think similarly for us at the Ozone Secretariat, we were very conscious that we were trying to reach a very young audience, and a traditional method wasn't going to be possible, whether it was just communicating a simple message or whether, you know, for us developing something, a tool that could also be used in a classroom setting. So we were mindful that today's younger generation very much socialize and interact and find entertainment online. So it made sense to create an animation and these unique characters that then inform the game play as well, in a way that then transmits and informs you know, complex science to an audience that is then much more receptive to that information and can more easily pick it up. And therefore we found that you know, something that is visually stimulating and engaging and also requires this sort of, you know, collective action, which is reinforced by the Montreal Protocol, that then hopefully stimulates debate amongst each other, discussions in the classrooms or even at home, to then bring out that broader message and have that sort of awareness raising around ozone layer protection.
I'm interested in what you said about how players can bring the conversation in with their friends or with their family at home. And I want to drill down a little bit on how your experiences are used in a social context, right? So as a shared experience with each other, not just as a way to learn. Thinking about who might want to take that first. Anyone want to jump in on that?
I guess I can take that one, Marina. One thing that I like to talk when we have this community event where we bring our experiences to them. So it's usually within that context. I love to say, you know, it's not just about the technology. The technology it's a great, you know, tool it's fantastic for that, but it's very important in our context that there is this on the ground conversation going. So we bring the experts to talk to the public in this community events, and they hear a little bit about the issue, they share what they're feeling and thinking about the issue, and then they get to experience this alternative futures. And then after that, we have a conversation with them. So it's very much a community kind of experience, that even though they're doing the VR on their own for a few minutes, but then we get back and we have these conversations, and we're finding that people are staying longer to this event. Every one of them actually tend to run late, where traditional sea-level rise planning events, they're typically way more boring. People just, it's an empty room at the end. And what we're finding by bringing the VR, that every one of them ends up running late. So it's been kind of an interesting twist there.
Yeah, maybe to build on that, within a game, when we look at impact, the fact that you can take on a role, in our case, a marine scientist, that you have agency, you go into a problem space, you can fail safely, and you learn the skills to level up to accomplish goals, to deal with the problem that the narrative and the gameplay offers you. All is impact that happens within the game. Sometimes you do that individually, sometimes you do that collaboratively. But when you study game-based learning, I think, as you alluded to, a lot of the power is the reflection and discussion and agency in and around the game. In the case of our game, we unlock 16 documentaries, short documentaries where you meet the marine scientists that inspired the narrative. Remarkable people like Dr. Samantha Joy, Dr. David Gruber, Dr. Sylvia Earle. And if you're not familiar with these names, if you Google them and read about their research, I promise you'll be blown away. And then you can start to get involved, whether it's a Hope Spot from Mission Blue, a protected ocean area, citizen science. So the idea of getting in-game loops to lead to real-world loops, we're still exploring and still experimenting with. But to me, that's the real power when you appeal to the head, heart, and hands in trying to make social change or behavioral change.
I mean, for us, we had quite a large vision in terms of what we wanted to do with Reset Earth. Once we had the game app in place and also the animation, we realized that we wanted this to be very much a discussion point and used as a tool, particularly in a classroom setting, so that while initially with the animation and the game app, we could get children discussing this amongst themselves, but then now we're going into phase 2, which is the education platform that we're developing around Reset Earth, in which we will have, teacher toolkits and lesson plans and workbooks that are developed around the 3 episodes that the main animation is broken down into. And so there's going to be this whole lesson plan and toolkit for teachers and academia to tap into, to get the ozone layer protection topic into the classroom and into the curriculum, and also the wider environmental impact and angle that the Montreal Protocol has. So that's the next phase, and obviously to try and be as equitable as possible and have this as accessible to as many. We will also look to adapt the app to desktop so that it can be used more widely in the classroom, and hopefully for as many schools around the globe as possible.
I think 2 of the things that really stood out to me from what you all just said is, one, Alan, when you talked about citizen science and loops, sort of in-game and out-of-game loops, I think that's something which is a really exciting trend that I'm seeing more frequently, and I'm so excited about being able to support more work like that. We actually, the Unity for Humanity program just funded a couple of projects that are looking at ways to do that. And it's something that I think I get really excited about, that opportunity. Juliano, yours is sort of naturally doing that by having a lot of real world data and then feeding it back into that community, the community planning process. And Stephanie, yours is as well looking at, I love that yours is sort of inspirational based on the successes that have had, the successes that have existed before, and how we might be able to then extrapolate that out into hopeful programs for climate change. And I'm wondering if any of you have thought about what sort of impact measurement you are either doing now, or what kind of metrics you might be looking at in the future to judge, when what you to judge when you've had success, right? What does success look like, and how would you measure that?
So, Marina, sorry, I don't mean to go first every time, but I was just having that discussion yesterday with a colleague, because we have in one of our apps for the Santa Cruz, there is a built-in survey. So we're actually getting the citizens and local residents' preferences to what could we do in the future. But we are just starting with that. So data collection, it's very early, but I do want to just bring up some interesting research from a colleague of mine. She works at the Virtual Human Interaction Lab at Stanford. And they're finding that by visualizing some of these things in virtual reality, the sense of self-efficacy, it's very much more enhanced than even watching that on a computer. So that means you feel more confident that your actions around, an issue will have an impact. So they're super interesting, but a lot of that research is emerging, and we're kind of exploring, and we have a couple of grants out, like some proposals out to look more into that.
In our case, since we're making a consumer game, so we're competing with all the other entertainment that's out there in the consumer space. So part of it is, are we taking some of the mind share of youth and young adult and family discretionary time to engage with the ocean? So part of it is, are we reaching hundreds of thousands or millions of gamers? But there's lots of other sort of embedded impacts. Another impact area that we've been looking a lot at is games let you step into a role, and there's empathy there. So if I'm playing a scientist, that's a very powerful experience. And so we think a lot about things like gender, the idea that we have a female scientist and we're highlighting amazing female scientists, I think helps inspire young girls to become marine scientists. And there's great research from Gina Davis's organization, She Jane. They actually put out an amazing report last week about identity in games, in movies and TV, and just how powerful they are. So there's lots of different impacts when you're doing something as immersive as an interactive gaming experience.
I think that's actually a really valid point that Alan makes, and we try to incorporate that into our game app as well, by not only having very strong female character, but within the game you can choose which character you want to be in the game and who you play with. There is this sort of, very collective notion of coming together in order to solve a problem, which is what we wanted to echo in the story of the Montreal Protocol, that how, it was perceived to be the environmental challenge of its time. And even though that was, considered insurmountable or, incredibly difficult, because there was collective action, it was overcome. And that's a story we want to repeat, and to make, especially the younger generation, who I think at this moment in time feel really quite despondent about sort of, the lack of progress in terms of sort of, climate awareness and climate change, that they have that knowledge that it can be done. It's been done before. So ultimately, I think what we want to do is, I think a success for us would be to have the Reset Earth toolkit in every classroom, in every school, and the game app to be, downloaded by, so many children. And then that we then develop this further, that potentially we adapt the game so that we can get schools to play against each other. So again, reinforcing that collective action, brings potentially great outcomes.
If I may add, Stephanie, I just this is fantastic, because according to some studies, about 98% of all stories on the media about environmental issues are negative. And studies show that we really need to shift the narrative from, this fact-based, all the bad things that are happening, to a more action-based kind of rhetoric here. And finding examples that have worked in the past is really the way to inspire people to engage and take action, right?
Yeah. The Montreal Protocol, I think, is just one of those exceptional success stories, in that it's been one of the most successful environmental agreements, and it has had such a positive outcome. And ozone depletion, ozone layer depletion is going into reverse. But again, it's an ongoing process, and we're far from having the hole closed. And that's why I think it was important for us to make sure that the younger generation didn't think that this was an environmental issue tick box checked, but that there is this ongoing, issue of this is a decades-long process.
Yeah, and just to build on that, a lot of the fiction out there, especially the future fiction, has become very dystopian, often around climate disasters and these horrific views of the future of the world, and that can become a bit overwhelming over time. So the idea, not so much of utopian, but aspirational but achievable, evocative futures, is, I would say, underrepresented in the broad future visions in media out there. And one of the things that I think people miss on the power of games in terms of sort of the behavior dynamic is the idea that if I do have some agency to make a difference, that I matter and I act, what's often missing in the real world is the feedback loops that my actions really made a difference, individually or collectively with my friends or across the generation. Seeing that feedback loop and that positive change, even if it's small, but I had a significant part of it, makes you want to lean in and do more individually and collectively. And games do that very well. And the more that we can have shared collective visions that are realistic, but very cool about where we could go, like with the ocean, being able to go dive deeper, stay longer, explore more creatures, have first contact with language. There's amazing work in that. And then seeing that my actions, whether it's through citizen science or engagement, are making a difference. That's when I think we start to see a lot of momentum towards change.
I think we also went down a slightly different route in that we took the dystopian approach because we wanted to highlight what the world could have looked like had the world not taken action and the Montreal Protocol been adopted. So we wanted to create this world whereby all of ozone had been destroyed, and what could that potentially look like? Having sort of, discussed that with the scientific assessment panels that informed the Montreal Protocol, to give that sense of the story of what you need to do and what you can do and what is quite important in terms of sort of, the environmental issues and how they're portrayed.
Great. I love it. You mentioned, Alan, about this the feedback loop, right? On how do you see that your action ended up having an impact? So in our experiences, we work with locals as much as we can. So for most of our experiences, the narrators of them are local residents of the communities that we work with. So there's one case in Turner Station in Maryland, just outside of Baltimore. One of the gentlemen from the community ended up being the narrator for the experiences. He bought a headset and he goes out to his friend's house and he shows that the experience to everyone. So it creates that pride, right? Like, hey, I was part of this experience. Check this out. Let's talk about it. And that led to another phase of the project now that we're working like 2 years later, looking at another part of the community. So that's kind of resulting in a great impact there.
I really appreciate you all being here today. I am just so inspired by the work that you're doing. And I hope that everyone who is taking part in the Unity for Humanity Summit is also inspired. Thank you so much.